Russian President Vladimir Putin threatened that there would be political military consequences for Europe and the whole world if Britain provided Ukraine with fighter jets. President Volodymyr Zelensky arrived in England with a shopping list and asked for more aid for his troops. The UK is Europe's largest military donor to Kyiv, with £2.3 billion spent in 2022, and that much more will be in 2023. Britain has been at the forefront of providing military aid to Ukraine, second only to the United States in providing support. But of several Western countries, Germany supplies more military hardware than Britain, even though it has been accused of being reluctant to support Ukraine. Jetman's government says it has so far issued licenses for the export of nearly £2.1 billion worth of military goods to Ukraine. Putin immediately reacted and coldly issued a threat if Britain provided fighter jets to Ukraine. The Russian embassy in London has even warned Britain not to supply combat aircraft to Ukraine. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky yesterday made his first visit to Britain since Russia invaded in February last year. Zelensky warned that the war could stagnate if the jets did not come from the West. In a joint press conference with Zelensky, British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, in response to the fighter jets' request, said there was nothing wrong when he was pushed to provide the aircraft. Currently, the UK is starting to prepare exercises for the Ukrainian Air Force. Britain has also offered to train Ukrainian fighter pilots on top of an existing program by preparing 10,000 troops for war. Meanwhile, former Prime Minister Boris Johnson urged Britain to offer up all its fighter jets and tanks, saying the best way to counter Russian aggression was to use 100 British Typhoon jets and a stockpile of Challenger tanks and similar. Rishi Sunak has warned that the first step will take some time. Throughout this conflict, we have been at the forefront, he said, and he denied there was any reluctance. Sunak said it was important for Ukrainian pilots to practice adapting to this standard NATO fighter. The fighter jet was high on Volodymyr Zelensky's shopping list when it arrived in Britain, and he made a sharp rebuttal to Rishi Sunak's suggestion that Ukrainian pilots take 3 years to learn to fly the RAF Typhoon. Because, said Zelensky, he would send fighter pilots who had been trained for 2.5 years. The UK has 137 Typhoons, of which around 100 are on the flight path, in other words operational. It is based at RAF Lossiemouth in Scotland and RAF Coningsby in Lincolnshire. A week ago, Note 10 dismissed Boris Johnson's insistence on Britain providing the fighter jets as impractical. This is partly because the training requirements for the Typhoon and F-35 are complex, as they involve their integration with other aircraft and technological systems in a war zone. But within hours of Zelensky's request that British aircraft protect Ukraine, a spokesman for the Prime Minister said yesterday that Britain was actively looking at it. Rishi Sunak's change in attitude follows Boris Johnson reiterating that there is no reasonable excuse why Britain should not send jets. But to Ukraine's frustration, the Prime Minister shied away from such a firm commitment. Sunak described yesterday's announcement that the RAF would train Ukrainian fighter pilots as a first step towards delivery of the jets. He also insisted it took 3 years to train Typhoon pilots, which is why Britain has not yet delivered any fighter jets to Ukraine.